I'd like to welcome everyone here to this session as part of the EHS, or University College Stockholm, to give it its English name, Digital Open Day. My name is Hugh Doyle, and I'll be chairing or moderating the session today. I work in the Communications Department at St. Ignatius College. This session is designed to introduce two of our master's programs that we offer. The first is, first in no particular order of sequence or importance, but the first is in International Relations and Ecumenism. And that is, the responsibility for that is primarily that for Professor Cyril Hoberun, and he will introduce that. And the other is the Masters in Religion, Politics and Democracy. And Professor Davor Jalto is primarily responsible for that program, and he will introduce that for us as well. I'm very happy to hand over to Davor, who will introduce the structure of master's programs and then introduce his own course, and then followed by Cyril. Thank you very much, Davor.
Thank you, Hugh, and thank you all who joined us today for this virtual open day, and those who will be watching this later on YouTube for your interest in these programs. I'll first try to give an outline of these two programs that actually follow a very similar structure. So my dear colleague Cyril will then talk more about the specificities of the program in International Relations and Ecumenism, but the general structure is fairly similar, and then I'll talk more specifically about the program in Religion, Politics and Democracy. As it is stated both on the website and in the materials that we prepared, the primary aim of this particular program is to educate future professionals and scholars in the understanding of the relationship between religious institutions and ideas and the public sphere. How this is done in terms of concrete courses and course content, I will explain in a minute. But first, I would like to say that this is a 2-year program, both of them are, and it is done primarily online. So most of the courses in the case of this program, everything is online. So you can join from wherever you are in the world and participate in the coursework. And of course, at the end of those 2 years, you will be required to write a master's thesis. It can also be an alternative form of a final project, but when you get to that point, we can discuss more about those details. In order to all of this coursework and the final project / thesis in order to complete the requirements for your master's degree. Now, more specifically about this program, it looks into the questions of the relationships between political sphere and religious sphere, religious ideas and institutions, primarily in the context or vis-a-vis Eastern Christianity or Orthodox Christianity. Sometimes these terms are used interchangeably. So on the one hand, what we try to do is to understand some of the major forces behind political and religious institutions and processes, and how each of these spheres influence each other in the context of what we broadly call the West or the Western world. But then within this context, look more specifically on how Orthodox Christianity conceptualizes these questions, how it has historically interacted with the political sphere, and of course bring all of these issues to the present and look into many of those issues in contemporary society and try to understand the driving forces behind these processes and how they can be understood from a variety of different perspectives. When it comes to the coursework, the program is divided into, and that's common thing, so it's not just this program, but many others, into 4 modules. Every year has 4 modules, and the whole program has, of course, 4 semesters. Module here just simply means first half of the first module, first half of the first semester of your studies. Then the second half of the first semester is the second module, and then 2 other modules within the first year, and then the same repeats the year after. So the courses do not run throughout the semester from late August or September up until the end of the year. Here it is divided into these modules. So this is just a technical remark, how it's organized. It might be relevant for your planning of time and how to approach these studies and these courses. So in the first year, in the fall semester, you will begin in the program Religion, Politics, and Democracy with 2 courses. So first module is dedicated to 2 courses, Theories and Methods in the Study of Religion, Politics, and Democracy, and Orthodox Christianity, Past and Present. Since you can come to this program from a variety of backgrounds, it doesn't necessarily need to be theology or Orthodox theology. It is important that before going into more detailed courses that more specifically engage with the questions that the program deals with, that we are, as we would say, on the same page, that we all understand some of the basic terminology, some of the basic methods that we are going to use. And that is why this course, primarily Theory and Methods in the Study of Religion, Politics, and Democracy, where we will discuss things such as critical thinking skills, skills necessary to successfully analyze texts and engage with complex ideas, but also to actually be exposed to a variety of techniques that you can use in your own academic or scholarly work. The second course, Orthodox Christianity, Past and Present, really gives you a background, if you don't have one, in Eastern Orthodoxy, Orthodox Church, its structure, some of the basic teachings, and how these things evolved over a long period of time, so that we at the same time learn about some of the foundational aspects of faith and tradition, but at the same time that we see how these things change over time. And this is something important for some of the courses that are coming up later on, actually already in the second module, where you will have political theologies in Orthodox Christianity. And there the focus is on how theological ideas have been used and are used in order to articulate political sphere, and of course how very political practice and also ideas from political philosophy shape and influence theological thinking of the social and political reality. After that, or in parallel to that, there is a course on religion and politics from Pax Romana to Pax Christiana. And it continues in the following semester, module 3, which is basically the second part of that course, from Pax Christiana to Pax Americana. This course covers the period from the ancient world, first half of the course, Pax Romana to Pax Christiana, from the ancient world, ancient Roman political ideas and political practices, and how they interacted with religious sphere and vice versa, up to the Protestant Reformation. The second part of the course, Pax Christiana to Pax Americana, deals with the modern world and how these ideas and institutions influenced each other over the period we generally call modernity, including postmodernity over the last couple of decades. The purpose of these courses is to give you a foundational knowledge of most important developments, primarily vis-a-vis religious and political institutions. And of course, in that context, what kind of narratives are used to articulate or justify or to promote some of the political and even imperial aspirations within each given context. Again, the focus is on what we call the Western world. So from ancient Rome, and how this also gradually, the idea of the West emerged over the course of these processes. The first year then continues with the courses on post-secularization in modern political philosophy, democracy and liberalism course, contemporary challenges. And there is one more course that is an elective course, so you can choose from any course that's offered at Stockholm School of Theology that is relevant for a particular field you would like to focus on in view of your future academic work or your thesis. Post-secularization in modern political philosophy really unpacks the issue of secularization. Things like secularization paradigms that eventually were abandoned for something that we nowadays call post-secularization, sometimes also called re-sacralization of the public and political sphere. And as both secularization processes, whatever we mean by that, as well as recent post-secularization processes and approaches are extremely relevant for understanding the dynamic, also power dynamic within modern society, and especially related to churches and states. This theme is extremely important and deserves to be looked more closely. Democracy and liberalism really unpacks the ideas of democracy. What does it mean to have a democratic society? How the idea of liberalism, what do we mean by that? How it shaped our very often common sense perception of what it means to live in a liberal democratic or liberal democratic society, and what are the challenges that we find there, both conceptual challenges trying to define these concepts, but also practical challenges, how these things function in concrete social environments. Year two is much simpler in its structure, and it has only two predefined courses in the first module of year two. That is global orthodoxy after 1989. The purpose of that course is to give you closer insight into all the changes and developments that have been happening in the Orthodox world and also outside of the Orthodox world, but processes that are this way or the other related to Orthodoxy after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and later on also the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the period roughly that coincides with what we call globalization process at the end of the 20th and at the beginning of the 21st centuries. And another course in module one is religion, art, and propaganda. And this one primarily deals with the issue of ideologies and how where we find them and how do we confront them, coming both from religious spheres, more narrowly taken, but also from a variety of other spheres, including visual culture. And that is one of the most predominant, or one could claim also the predominant ways in which propaganda is being used and is spread for a variety of purposes, primarily for the purposes of course, spreading political ideologies. The rest of the first semester in year two is dedicated to your thesis preparation. So the course that will help you develop your thesis structure. And there is an elective course, again, your choice, what you find the most beneficial, the most meaningful course that's offered at Stockholm School of Theology, which complements your studies and helps you focus more on the issues you are particularly interested in related to your master's thesis. And the last semester in year 2, so the 4th semester of your studies, is dedicated exclusively to your master's thesis that you're supposed to develop, of course, in consultations with your thesis advisor and of course, using all the knowledge and experience that you have gained from the previous courses and course work. So this is an overview, a very general one, but I tried to give you an insight not only into what are the courses there, but also a little bit of what each of these courses contains, what they are meant for. And I would be happy later on, of course, to help you with any particular questions you might have, but wouldn't take more of your time, and especially not to take more time from Cyril and his presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Davor. Cyril, can you follow?
Thank you, Davor, for a wonderful and a comprehensive summary of the master's program. I just want to add maybe a couple of moments to that presentation. I think it is important to understand the place of the master's program vis-a-vis other programs, including bachelor program or PhD. Sometimes people think that a master's program is something like a repetition of the bachelor's program. I believe it is not. It's more like a quantum leap, essentially, from the bachelor level to a completely new level. Sometimes I explain the meaning of the master's program by saying that what you've studied on the bachelor level, now you need to question everything that you've studied on the bachelor level in the master's program. So essentially, master's program is about developing a critical thinking, about learning to ask questions, even if those questions go, to the sacred subjects. And we in theology, we deal with sacred subjects. People are in awe to question things which are seemingly, sacred and holy. Nevertheless, that's what we are supposed to do in our master's program. In a sense, we follow the steps of Apostle Peter, who asked Jesus, who was in dialogue with Jesus about who Jesus is, and questioned Jesus. So we just need to follow, the apostle in asking questions about our faith. So that is somehow about what is the difference between the master's and the bachelor level. The master's program can lead you to a more advanced research degree or level of PhD, of doctoral studies. And the master's program is a kind of a precondition sine qua non, and necessarily a mandatory step before entering the doctoral studies. It's really important to complete this master's level in order to go further to the next cycle of studies. For me personally, I should say it is a bit of a challenge to participate in the development of the master's program. At St. Ignatius, I had an experience of developing master's program for the theological institutions of the Russian Orthodox Church. Until recently, relatively recently, for instance, in the Russian Orthodox seminaries and academies, there were there was no differentiation between master's and bachelor. And essentially we had seminaries and academies essentially repeated what students studied in the seminaries. It was to a great extent waste of time. That's why we had to introduce this differentiation between the master's and the bachelor level, and that was somehow my task. What I learned from my experience of kind of reforming the system of education of the Russian Church, I tried to implement here in St. Ignatius, and I believe it is an excellent platform for this kind of implementation. And I believe that the master's program in Orthodox theology, these programs have a prominent future and could be really an example for other Orthodox theological institutions worldwide. So it's really a pioneering, if you want, program in many senses. And just to illustrate the pioneering character of the master's program, I want to say a few words about my own program, which I supervise. It is the program in International Relations and Ecumenism. It is really special, and it's not special just because we're supposed to say that it is special. I believe it is special, especially if you take, if you compare it with other programs in ecumenical studies. There are quite a few master's program in ecumenical studies in different institutions in the world, but I think our approach is different because we really try to contextualize ecumenical studies. That's why we put ecumenical studies together with international relations. It reflects the approach of our school to the phenomenon of the church that we develop, and I believe that ecclesiology is really a strong point of our studies, of our school, where we try to study the phenomenon of the church in the context of socio-political developments. And if you look at our master's program, you will see that we study the phenomenon of the church in the context of different environments in which the church grew, like the imperial environment of the Roman Empire, then the Ottoman Empire, the Muslim states, then the modern secular states, communist states, and so forth. We believe in our school that the church cannot be extracted from the socio-political environment where it grows. That's why in order to understand properly the church, one has to take into consideration those environments. And the same applies exactly to the ecumenical studies. The ecumenical studies are not cannot be extracted or considered separately from a more complex network of relationships that the church are engaged in. That's why we believe that the ecumenical studies are relevant to the international relations. We also consider and focus in our studies on the Inter-Orthodox Relations, which is a kind of a sort of internal ecumenism for the Orthodox churches. This has become particularly a debatable question in the recent years, in the recent time, when the Orthodox Church has gone through several crises and found itself on the verge of splits. And in order to bridge those splits, we offer solutions to some of those crises. We try to figure out how to avoid these splits and these divisions. It's not that we are just like oracles, we come up, we have a revelation how to overcome those solutions. No, the solutions come from meticulous study of the circumstances, of the reasons, including socio-political reasons that had led to the crisis, and we try to figure out our solutions to how overcome those crises. We do it together with our students, and interactivity and engagement is one of the kind of articles of our faith in St. Ignatius, our creed. The students are engaged, and we elaborate upon the solutions, actual solutions for the actual problems in the Orthodox Church together with our students. So if you want to be a part of a think tank, as it were, I think, one of the best think tanks in the Orthodox world. Please do join us. You will become a part of this think tank. So that is what I wanted to add to a marvelous description by Davor about our program. And I think now we will be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you both very much indeed. I have one preliminary question, if I may, put to both of you, and that is, can you explain something of how teaching is, how it takes place on the master's programs? I mean, are students able, are they sitting in lectures online, or are they in seminar discussions, or is it a one-to-one? Can you just say briefly, each of you, how it is to teach these courses or to be a student in these courses?
Davor, do you want to begin?
Yeah, sure. We have a variety of teaching methods, let's call it that way. So it is not primarily and certainly it is not exclusively teaching where there is a teacher who just talks ex cathedra, and then students maybe pose a couple of questions, and that's all. For some of the courses, that is a useful method, and we also practice that. But since it is an online program, I'm talking now primarily of the program in religion, politics, and democracy. In addition to that, and more commonly, we have a combination of pre-recorded lectures that students can watch at any time that suits them during a certain period of time, during the week, for example, in which this particular theme is discussed, and the lecture on that theme is about. But then we also have online discussions. So we use Canvas platform for our online courses, and there on Canvas there is also room for weekly discussions, and those discussions are sometimes led by teachers, sometimes they are led by other students, and of course they imply that all of the students and teachers they actually interact on a weekly basis in those weekly discussions. Then we also have something that we could call live discussion sessions, where students and teachers meet at scheduled time, and that is mostly used to actually address issues that either are more practical in character, something that is related to the management of the course or student assignments. They can ask their teachers, but they can also be used to discuss more in-depth particular topic or particular subject. So it is really a combination of more classical lectures, using technological opportunities that are there on Canvas to actually turn classical lectures into a different kind of lectures, but then also having class discussions, presentations using all sorts of audiovisual materials that all is supposed to contribute to a better learning experience, as it were.
Okay, thank you. Cyril, is it the same with your course as well?
Well, more or less, yes. And I think the way of teaching reflects exactly the philosophy of master's degree, if you wish. In contrast to the bachelor degree, where students are supposed to listen to the lectures and they usually consume the information and try to learn in the class. On the master's level, it's different. Students are supposed to learn to consume information outside the classroom, whether it is a virtual classroom or on campus, a real one. So the students gather information outside the classroom, and then they come to the classroom in order to exchange information, to share, to reflect on this information, to engage with it. And I encourage my students to do that as much as possible. I don't teach essentially in my classes on the master's level. I learn from students who come and share what they've learned. What we do, usually we share presentations. So I ask students to prepare a presentation on a particular topic. Then a student makes this presentation to the rest of the group. We have a discussion, we ask questions, and the student answers question or asks his or her own questions. So it's really an engagement, an engaged learning, which we value very much. And it proves to be very successful. Students are very happy about this way of interaction. And this reflects exactly the philosophy of what they call flip-flop learning, when what in the past, in the old school, students used to learn in the class, now they learn outside the class, and what they missed usually in the class, namely to engage with one another, they do it in the class nowadays. So it's really the latest, if you want, development in the modern pedagogical methods and skills that we try to implement, and this actually works very satisfactory for the students. At least if we judge it from the feedback from the students, they're very happy about that.
Good, thank you both very much indeed. Can I ask it this way, that each of you puts in just a couple of minutes what you think the difference is from the other person's course? So Cyril, if you begin, and how is your course different from Davor's, and then Davor, how is your course different from Cyril's?
Well, somehow those courses, as you can see, those master's program, they are not quite conventional. They don't, fall to the established rubrics like systematic theology or, New Testament. It's a combination. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid course which combines elements from different fields, and essentially they've been tailored somehow, to the professors, and they reflect our interests somehow. Well, they are as different as we are different as personalities, I would say. At the same time, they are certainly they offer different perspectives. I would say that at least my perception of Davor's course is that Davor's take on theology is more from the cultural studies, from the political studies. My approach is going in the opposite direction. I approach political science and international relations from within the theological perspective somehow, and that's why I believe we perfectly supplement each other, and we add to each other somehow. So if you're interested, I would say, in kind of traditional stuff with outlooks at the political issues, socio-political issues, you can choose, for instance, my course. If you're more interested, in real world stuff, not so much kind of world of ideas as mine, real world stuff with outlooks at theology, then you could choose Davor's course. That would be my take on it.
Good, thank you. And Davor?
Thanks both for the question and for Cyril's answer. So I would just follow up on what Cyril said and basically repeat what he said, and maybe a little expand on that. It seems to me that the master's program in religion, politics, and democracy really is, in that sense, interdisciplinary, that it engages from the very beginning these theological / religious and then political / ideological ideas and institutions into a dialogue, and we try to understand this interference, communication, and what happens there when religious ideas influence political ones, and vice versa, and when institutions, ecclesiastical and political, do the same, as opposed to the program in International Relations and Ecumenism, where the accent really is on the church, and things like ecumenical movement, for instance, understanding how it occurred, inter-church relations, how then churches work and function, or the Orthodox Church in the context of contemporary world, how diplomacy works there. So it is from really growing in a certain sense, and I hope I'm interpreting it correctly. If not, Cyril, please interrupt me. It grows naturally from ecclesiology. So ecclesiological perspectives that then open up to a variety of different things, including ecumenical dialogue, ecumenical movement, diplomacy, church diplomacy, but also then secular diplomacy, and how these are connected, and other things. So that would be my perspective, or my way of I think, basically voicing the same.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Just it crossed my mind during actually Cyril's presentation that one thing that we could actually say more about, and I didn't mention that, and Cyril mentioned it, but maybe we could expand on that, are, for example, student assignments that it might be of interest to our prospective students to actually learn something about their work, not of course going into details what are the actual assignments they're going to do, but rather the types of assignments that we use. And since we have a very diverse student population, students coming from all sorts of backgrounds, both academic backgrounds, but also just and cultural backgrounds, their expectations or experiences about academic context and the kind of academic work that they're supposed to do might be different. So in that sense, I just wanted also to say that in addition to these different ways of doing teaching and learning during the courses and course lectures or other types of learning activities, that also we have a variety of different student assignments. So things that students are supposed to do that, first of all, is important for them to, without that they cannot complete the course, but also is another way of, another form of learning activities. So it is not just that you sit in the course or that you just read the books and then you at the end pass the exam. It can happen within individual courses. But in addition to that, and in addition, of course, to reading the books, that's necessary and that goes without saying, you will also be supposed to do all sorts of other assignments, such as Cyril mentioned, for instance, presentations, student presentations that can be oral presentations, that can be other types of presentation on a specified topic. You will have things like response papers, where you are supposed to provide a short, brief response, for example, to the scheduled reading. You will have things like research papers that are much more demanding, that basically help you perfect your writing and research skills, to learn what it means to actually do a research on a specific question using appropriate methodology, appropriate language, and so on and so forth, which of course prepares you then for your master's thesis. We also have tests that can happen. We also have something that's called take-home examination, where certain kinds of questions or analysis are put to you, and you're supposed to do that within a certain period of time. So that is just to give you a sense of diversity of learning methods, and also examination methods that go way beyond the traditional way of oral or written examination, which is there, but our teaching and learning methods and assignments are not reduced to that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would probably add to that to sum up somehow the philosophy of our master's programs in the terms of content, it is interdisciplinary. In the terms of method, it is interactive. So those are two pillars of the master's program.
Good, thank you. I think, Cyril, you mentioned, but maybe it was Davor, the possibility of a project sort of in place of or as part of the research thesis. Can you say briefly what that might look like, what that might be? What sort of projects do you have in mind?
I think it was Davor who mentioned it.
Davor.
Yes. Well, it's a possibility to do something. It depends, of course, on the interests of the individual student and the type of question or a kind of research they want to do. So it could, potentially speaking, look like many different things. It could look like policy papers. It could look like producing concrete projects of social or activist kind in a real physical, social, and political environments that would then, of course, have this research and paper dimension. So a production of a certain kind of thesis, paper-based, words-based, is inevitable, but it can be also done together with some other types of activities. So something that resembles NGO activist work that could go along the lines of producing or relating the research with the production of something we could call policy papers or other types of documents, depending, of course, on the kind of project. Hypothetically speaking, although maybe not applicable to most of the students and their interest in this program, but generally speaking, it could be an exhibition on a certain subject and then a thesis that would contextualize that and properly do a research on a particular topic and so on and so forth. So that's why it could be either the final thesis project or a thesis, meaning primarily a research thesis. I should add that those who aspire to continue to PhD level and do a PhD thesis, probably it would be advisable, again, depending on the narrow field and the topic you want to pursue, to actually go with the traditional and research-based master's thesis. Those who see themselves primarily in pursuing professional careers, so not research-oriented or scholarly careers, but work in the NGO sector, governmental organizations, international organizations, diplomacy, and so on and so forth, they might think that using for certain kinds of themes, that using those expanded media, so to say, for their final project could be much more beneficial.
And I just want to add to that as I mentioned earlier, the master's program functions not just an educational institute, as it were, but also a think tank addressing real world problems, the problems pertinent to to the current orthodoxy or Christianity, if you want. So the projects that the students could be assigned may include also guidelines how to solve real problems of the either global orthodoxy or global Christianity. So students are prepared to and are expected to be able to address those real problems, and that is, I believe, that is the focus of our program.
Good. Thank you very much indeed.
I just want to say that well, it's really a kind of unique program, and it's not because we are supposed to say it is unique. If you compare, if you do your kind of homework to compare this program with others, you will find that it is quite different, and you will find a very friendly environment of studies, a very international environment. It's really an international program, and it includes students from over the world. Sometimes I should say that I had personally to rearrange, the hours of teaching in order to accommodate people, from the United States, Europe, and Australia. People come from over the world, and you will find a very international environment, and I hope you will enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you for coming, for all of you, for the presentations from Davor and Cyril, and also for those of you who have come as visitors. If you would like to know more, read the websites, and it's very easy to apply for the courses from there.